Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. I've got a mind-blowing conversation that we're going to do just in a moment with Mr. Adrian Koehler. And Adrian has a company called TakeNewGround.com. He's been very successful in his life, but Adrian and I are going to talk about human engagement and conversation, even if it's with difficult people, even if that conversation is with yourself, and how to actually move yourself from point A or move the other person into a win-win scenario on conversation. We're going to break it down in detail. You don't want to miss this one. It runs a little longer than normal episodes, and that was because we were just getting so into such cool stuff. Because the reality is most of the time business is not the challenge, right? Business is money out, money in equals something. But when we add humans and their emotions to that, and we add all the frames that we have, and we add different positionings and misunderstandings, that's when business gets kind of tough. It gets kind of stuck or very stuck. Or it just grows like crazy when all that's in alignment. So we're going to talk about it in depth. So get your pen and paper out. We're going to go there right in one moment. Now, also, if any of you are interested in taking your business and making it, wherever your revenue is and growing it to the next place, and you're interested in a metrics-based, math-based formula for doing that, or if your follow-up is actually like falling off, or you're not following up as you should, because you can easily get a bump of 5 to 20% in revenue just by following up. So reach out to me directly at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. Let's go talk to Adrian right now. Hey, Adrian, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Doug, great to be with you, brother.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Will you tell everybody your background? Because it's really, really, really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. It took me a long time to figure out my background was cool. Um, I've been in this work now, so I coach founders of companies and come in and align leadership teams, and I'm kind of the hired gun, sometimes the secret weapon to make stuff happen that needs to happen, that's been stuck for a long time. With my company, Take New Ground, but I didn't get here directly. I mean, a lot of folks in my industry, we're all like kind of business executives or something, and this is kind of their retirement plan, or maybe some of them were like therapist people or HR people that thought they should start coaching. That wasn't my background at all. I came out of undergrad, was going to be a doctor for a bit, and I thought, I don't actually want to do that. So I actually became a nurse and worked in the pediatric intensive care unit mostly. I did that for a while, then moved from Chicago to Los Angeles, and I come from a spiritual background, so I got involved in a faith community called Mosaic, but we were like the renegades, and I spent all my time building leadership teams, volunteer leadership teams, and mobilizing them to go make a difference in the city and around the world. So traveled a ton in my 20s and 30s, spoke on stages, and the guy that I worked with he was catalytic, and everybody wanted him to go speak at their conference, so he'd send punks like me to go talk about leadership at conferences everywhere. So that was a great experience. But then from that, I met a guy his father was a billionaire, so he was born a millionaire, and he wanted to make a difference with his money. So I left that and helped him start his foundation, took him around the world. He finally decided he wanted to do work here I live in Los Angeles, live here locally, and wanted to give people who had blown it a second chance. So we did all of our work was doing leadership development, leadership transformation programs in prison. So we'd, do 3-day deep dives with murderers and how to turn their lives around. From the essence of that conversation is moving from a victim mindset to a responsible mindset. And then out of that became, what I'm doing now, which is coaching folks. But the through line for me has always been, I love, and talented at, and honored to be with people in crucial moments of transition in their lives. Sometimes massive suffering, like with families when their kids are dying. Sometimes moments of faith crisis, identity crisis. Sometimes moments of huge choice. Sometimes moments of deep opportunity to take responsibility and turn your life around and stop being a criminal and start being a contributor. But being in those moments with folks and helping them take courageous action that works for their legacy. That's my life.
I love your backstory. So you and I don't know if we ever talked about this, but I also was going to be a doctor. So that my degrees
Ah,
were undergrad was biology and nuclear medicine, um, and then I had thought about becoming a PA or a nurse as well when I was in the military. And
yeah,
Steve Jobs did this commencement speech at Stanford, which was called "Connecting the Dots," right? So as I hear back on your story and I
yeah,
started connecting the dots on paper here as you were talking, it all comes down to helping people on those crucial points in their lives. I mean, that's being a pediatric nurse. I mean, come on. I mean,
yeah,
you see a lot there, and running the foundation and getting involved in all what you've done. So it doesn't
yeah.
surprise me to hear you're doing what you're doing, especially when you found the niche within the leadership component of it. And I wanted you I wanted so much for you to come on here because you're a really great communicator, and we wanted to talk about how to communicate and have human engagement, even with very difficult people. And the reason I was excited, Adrian, to have this conversation go on is I wrote a book on objections, the psychology and philosophy of objections. And a lot of people, they just don't know how to have these difficult conversations because they're taking it personally. They've got some background that leads them to say, oh, ouch, this hurts, and then they got defending themselves and on and on and on. But if we're going to be in business, well, heck, if we're going to be alive, we are going to have to we're going to run into situations where we run into difficult people, for whatever personal reason that they're having their own issue. So
for sure.
how do we like let's dive into that a bit,
Sure.
and some of us, even go to the point and, I mean, I just had a conversation with somebody on the highway the other day. They come by and they're driving like 100 miles an hour and they fly by, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Slow down, right? You're gonna really kill someone on this highway. And what do? They throw me the finger, they start swearing at me, they do this, they do that. Like, I don't even know how they had time. I mean, I was doing 65 and they went by me at least 100, right? But the reality is, AKA my reaction at first was, what a bleep, like he's gonna,
Yeah,
hurt
yeah,
somebody. And
totally.
so
Sounds like the guys that come down my street. I've got a couple kids that when people fly down my street, I am known for letting them know that they're going to kill someone. Yeah.
yeah, which is reality, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
it's gonna happen sooner or later. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Well,
but yeah,
here's
go ahead.
let me pause it like one thought first. It's like, and I think your view is like the very common view. I think it's a very natural view, which is like difficult people. And here's where I go first. And I just got back. I was in Toronto with a company that I work with. I coach the head of brand at a company called The Ordinary, which is a beauty brand that just got bought by Estee Lauder. They're the biggest one on TikTok. They're fascinating under a umbrella called Decium. And I just spent a couple days with their leadership team, their marketing brand leadership team, and then with their larger group of 40 leaders from around the world. And this theme came up a lot, which was making the distinction between a difficult person and a difficult conversation. So
Mm,
here's what I mean is that like first thing for me is like I try to the principle is be really hard on the problem, be very soft on the person. So we naturally conflate the conversation someone is, and if this is too philosophical, let me know. But the conversation someone is and them as a person. So there's like a conversation, a difficult quote unquote difficult person is just has become a certain conversation that's not useful, not helpful. So, but we typically go after the person instead of going after what they're about or what their conversation is or how they're behaving. So that's the first distinction I make is like, can I see this person as a person beyond how they're representing themselves?
mhm.
And can I then go get shoulder to shoulder with them about what they're saying or what they're doing and take a look at what they're doing and the impact of what they're doing. We're talking to leaders here. Let's just say we're talking with a peer maybe, or someone that reports to you. If I can get shoulder to shoulder with someone and connect with the person that's not the conversation. Does this make sense? I don't know if this is
Yeah,
too
it makes total
philosophical,
sense. It's actually
you know?
it, when I teach people about objections, for example, Adrian, what my first thing is like, whatever said, breathe, relax, take a moment,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And clear your mind, and then start getting curious, not confrontational. Because
Right
if,
on.
if we don't get curious and we get confrontational, we're going to make it about the person, just as a, a human response. And the
Right
more
on.
it gets a little dangerous, like on the highway, AKA, I
Yeah,
immediately made it about the person, right? And so,
right.
and why did I do that? Well,
Which is human. It's
yeah,
human, man. Like
we all do that.
survival is not, we don't get a vote on if we want to survive. Our brains naturally want to survive. People can obviously, kill themselves in lots of ways, but that's a choice. Our brain is wired to survive. So with you.
Right. But in business, especially in business, we've got to look beyond that, because, maybe that guy was driving 100 miles an hour to get to the hospital to save someone else's life, right?
Right.
So I didn't know that
Right.
at the time. All I know is he almost clipped two cars doing it. So, you know what I mean? So, um, so the point in business is, there's very few instances where somebody's going to be in danger. That I've never heard of a CEO or any sales conversation where somebody just said, "No, I don't like your widgets," and they threw them out the top window, out on the street, right? So,
Right.
so I love what you said, because if we can be hard on the situation and soft on the person, if we can look
Right.
beyond what's going on with this person, we now start asking better quality questions,
Right.
which
Yes.
usually lead to better quality outcomes.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that comes to mind too, which is like a neuroscience principle, is that the meaning in every communication resides in the receiver.
I would
The
agree.
meaning of every communication resides in the receiver, right? So if let's say I'm talking to a difficult person or a crazy person or a stupid person or whatever, it's really great if you're the receiver of that and it's baffling to you, or it's aggravating to you, to take a moment and say, hold on, I don't quite understand, because I'm having this response based on literally what I've made up, how I've, you know, uh, uh, translated this communication, and all of the assertions I'm making, and all of the, assessments I'm having about the person and about the purpose of it and about the outcome of it. And, I've made up some kind of future about it. That's, anyway. So if I can question my own noticing or question my own interpretation and get the person to like give more language, then it gives me some space. And if I'm willing, and I just say this is like top tier leadership stuff, not everybody's up for doing this. If I'm willing to get off of how right I am all the
Mm.
time, it's like human beings, we love to be right about stuff, especially if you're an assertive leader. You probably made a gajillion dollars about being right. But in the moment, if you want your own peace and if you want your own effectiveness, stop being right for just a minute. Ask a few questions. Question yourself. Notice your noticer. The top tier folks that I coach, they are really skeptical, might be the word, or they are in a noticeable dialogue with themselves about what else could be true versus what they think is true. And that gives them adaptability, it gives them versatility, it makes them really more dangerous in the room because they can see things from so many points, it makes them so much less predictable. Some folks that have such a clear point of view are so predictable, it makes them so easy to con. So if I can like question that and wonder about it and then put it back on the other person's lap, it's like, hey, you said this. You know what? It really makes no sense to me, but I figure it makes sense to you. So can you explain it a new way?
It's a
Then you
great,
get some room.
yeah, and it's I love what, the meaning resides in the receiver, and it's
Yes.
the meaning we actually give the impulse that we're getting, right?
Yeah.
So
Right
if
on.
I understand you correctly,
Always.
I,
Yep.
I This situation is absolutely ridiculous, but I think it'll illustrate it. So
Sure,
we got a
sure.
new kitten. His name was Puck. And
Puck. Oh, that's a
Puck
good
is a
name.
little like he's a little odd, but he's a devil. He's just like he's mischievous, really. But Puck was
That's fun.
just tiny, and then we had this older cat. Her name is Kissy, and
Uh-huh.
we're like trying to socialize him and bring him into the same
First
thing.
off, you're great at naming cats. You're great at naming cats. Kissy
Well,
and Puck. Okay.
well, so Puck, because he was just totally black color, so we like hockey, so we took that from the hockey game. He looked like a puck when he
I
curled up.
love
He
it.
looked like a hockey puck. Now,
Love it.
Kissy, frankly, should have been named Bitey and Scratchy, and Grumpy, right? So, but the reason I bring these two up is when the first time we went to socialize the two of them, and if folks you don't know, you can't just put one cat who's been living in the household for 10 years in with another cat. They territorially don't like it.
Yep.
Kissy just fur up, charged Puck and ran right up into his face. And everybody in the room was aghast. They were like, "Oh my gosh, she's going to kill him, right?" Puck
Yep.
remained calm and looked at her like, "Seriously? I've seen worse in the prisons I've been in, right?" I mean, he just looked just like that. And she
Yeah.
just calmed down and took a step back.
Oh, wow.
And so the reason I bring that up, even though it's a ridiculous comparison in some regards, is because I want people to understand that what you said, the meaning resides in the receiver. Puck didn't flinch. He wasn't scared. Or if he was, he didn't show it. And the fact that
Yep.
he stood fast in what he wanted to have as the meaning immediately started diffusing the situation. And then it turned from that to a
Sure.
little more curiosity.
Sure.
So, Adrian, I have a question. Do people do this because they pull the meaning from the past, or are they projecting into the future what the meaning is and they're not in the moment of the meaning, or is there something else that causes that?
Well, there's a reason why we have a whole therapy industry. And therapy, comes from obviously Freud, and Freud was a pro. Freud did the best he could. I'm getting to your cat question, I promise.
Sure.
But what Sigmund Freud suggested, which worked with the natural human paradigm, is that we are what he would call etiological, that we are the effect. And what's the cause? Our history. And if you believe Freud, then good luck, because you're just the product of history. And all of us are prone to that because we'd prefer not to be a live human agent right now. We'd prefer to be just responding to circumstances, or essentially what we've made up about circumstances in history. And so a lot of people are. A lot of people are responding to their past, and some of it conscious, some of it unconscious. Adler was a compatriot of Freud, but didn't get all the ink because he said what was more dangerous, which was, I am what I'm committed to.
Wow.
I am the future that I want. And that's called teleological. So I'm not sure the answer to your question, like what people are doing. Most folks, though, are playing not to lose just because that's the way the brain works. The brain's much like 5 times, I think, is the stat, 5 times more motivated to avoid pain than pursue pleasure.
Mhm.
So we're naturally going to play not to lose. So here's this person, they're a threat. I've got this. I don't want to lose what I have. I don't want to lose my ego. I don't want to lose how I look. I don't want to lose the company. I don't want to lose the momentum, blah, blah, blah. So therefore, blank, whatever I've made up about it, and then I make the choice. The most powerful folks are really committed to a crystal clear future. And so they interpret this moment in alignment with what they're committed to, not based on what other people think is happening. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So like if I'm committed to a glorious future with let's say a business partner of mine, and let's say something's going sideways, I'm going to view what's happening in a way that I can approach it, and then that person's approachable. Hey, we're going to work this out. Listen, I'm going here, and I think we're going there. I want us to go there. So here's what I'm making up about this. You tell me what's going on, and can we work on this together? So it's like, so the most powerful folks have that aim really clear. I think in today's society, most in the speed of it, it's natural for folks to not take a moment and get clear on what they want. Big picture, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year plan, let alone even when I was with this company last week, when I started off this training, 2 hours with this team, I said, hey, what do you want to get out of this 2 hour session? And they looked at me like that. I said, I know, you probably haven't asked yourself that. On the way to work this morning, you could have asked yourself, hey, I'm going to be spending this time with this guy today. What do I want to get out of this? But it's natural not to wonder that, because now if I get clear about what I want, then at least at some level, I'm at stake for it. Most folks don't want to get at stake for something because then they're on the hook, at least to themselves, and they don't want to disappoint themselves. So they'll just let circumstances run their life, or let the meeting run them instead of them running the meeting. So long answer to your question, but that's available, is to have the future that organizes current reality, and current reality is like the circumstances, but also the thinking in the room.
We're speaking with Mr. Adrian Koehler, and Adrian has a company called TakeNewGround.com, and we're talking about human engagement, even if it seems difficult at the moment with people. And you said something that I want to come back to. You know, I am what I am committed to.
Yep.
And people are not clear on what they want. I find that all the time with people. So, for example, if we're going to restructure, we're going to help somebody go from unpredictable revenue to predictable revenue, they're not clear on what they want as far as a goal.
Right.
And therefore, they're not clear on who the ideal right fit buyer is a lot of times. Therefore, their messaging is off. Therefore, everything it's off.
It all trickles down. That's right.
That core, right? And what I found fascinating is you said that people aren't thinking about it because they've got to now have a stake in it if they admit it, right? And say it.
Right on.
Did I hear you correctly?
That's right.
Okay. So
yeah, well, clarity is vulnerable.
Okay. So
Yeah.
is it, my question would be then, why do most people not have clarity? Is it our scripting from the past? Is it our feeling that we don't desire it or don't believe we deserve it? Is it our values? Is it our beliefs? Because I think this really comes down to the crux to why people sometimes are difficult to communicate with. And that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, a handful of answers to that question. I mean, we alluded to it earlier. We call it the 4 basic survival needs, which is looking good, feeling good, being right, and being in control. And just we assert at Take New Ground, those are like gravity for humans. Looking good, feeling good, being right, being in control. And I view it as those are always going on for every person at every moment in time, how much they care about those things. But every person also gets a choice at what level of volume that is in their mind, i.e. like how much that's going to be their most pervasive thought, or is it going on in my mind, but it's down to like a 1 out of 10. For example, right? So I'm on with you. I obviously don't want to look like an idiot here. So like, that's there somewhere back here. But connecting with you, connecting with your audience is so much more important to me than if I look good or if I sound good, right? Mm-hmm. So like, for example, so most folks, everybody's in that conversation. Most people aren't aware how much they're in that conversation. So that's number one. Is that's like, that's always going on in this space between a person and themselves in the mirror, a person and themselves in the room. They're always going on like that. If I decide to get clear, then I am, as we were talking about earlier, at stake for something, and that puts me at risk for not surviving, like not looking good if I don't get it. Or it also naturally calls me, like if I'm committed to something, it calls me to trouble. right? So if you and I started a business together and said, hey, we're going to do $10 million in 2 years, then there's the oh crap moment. We have a lot of stuff to do and a lot of things to overcome. Are we up for it? Is this relationship going to work? And are we willing to like put ourselves at stake? And I mean, at the end of the day, most things are connected to death. Like, am I willing to like, go and fail and get up and go again and believe in myself? And do I have it? And most folks don't have that much of a resilient mindset that, yeah, I can die 1,000 times and come back. There's nothing going to stop me. So, clarity calls us, summons us to the surface and who we are as a person. And most folks don't want to be bothered. They just want to like, put their time in and hope they make it and hope they feel proud about themselves. But folks that you like working with, folks that I like working with, are always at stake and love a challenge.
So I think that's I'm as we go along, I'm feverishly writing notes, right? Because is it how what the question would be, I'll be a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. Why, Adrian? Why do people, why do they not take charge of who they want to be and let the life kind of pass them by or kind of go toward what they really don't want to, but they let it happen anyways? Is it how they value themselves? Is it what, because I think the reason I ask this is really the core, I believe anyways, because as you said, it's in the interpretation of the meaning we give it as we receive it. So if we're feeling
Yeah,
kind of like bad about ourselves, then as you said, we're going to defend our positioning, right? We're going to defend
right.
that. And if that out of those 4 levels is like super high, that we're going to look good no matter what, or we're going to win no
Yep,
matter what, whatever it is, then we're going to be
yep,
argumentative
right,
versus uh
right.
versus even open to possibilities. So I'm fascinated by why does this happen? If you know, and I know these questions, we never even talked about any of this, but I'm kind of putting
No,
you on
it's
the
great.
spot, so I
It's
appreciate it.
great. No, 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 no. I'm just thinking about how to be concise for us here. I've got, I could do 5 days on this. Actually, we do. And one of our offerings, we do a public training called the Revenant Process, which is a 4-day deep dive for leaders to go explore becoming, essentially. I mean,
Mhm.
putting it in philosophical terms, like how do you be, who the heck are you? And how do you choose that? And how do you know what's true of you? And we assert, I know what's true about my intention by watching my impact. So reality is a feedback mechanism to tell me what's actually true for me, not the story I have about me. So there's one thing. So if folks are interested in this kind of deeper conversation, come play with us at the Revenant Process. Um, but why do people do this? The victim mindset is so pervasive. Victim mindset meaning this is that things happen, people happen, events happen, and I am just doing the best I can despite the current of other things. And other things might also be me, by the way. Like, let's say I've got a learning disability. So now, Adrian at 44, has had a learning disability for, whatever has been diagnosed since it was 10 or something. So 34 years of a learning disability, and I'm doing the best I can compared to that. Now that's an orientation to what's happening. And most folks would rather not take responsibility for their relationship to all of those things. So that's why we prefer it, because it gives us a way out. It's not me. We tend to think that if it's not my fault, quote unquote, then I'll feel better about it. But yet that ends up stealing all the possibility out of our lives.
Mm.
So we don't orient ourselves to, oh, everything that's happening, I want it to be happening. That's the dangerous idea I propose to myself, to anybody I work with, is that whatever is happening on purpose. Nothing is happening just because it's happening. It's because I want it to be happening that way. And that's a dangerous level of ownership. But I say that if you own it that way, then you're in it on your toes. Like if I chose it, then I can choose something else. So if it's, if I'm running a business and things are trending down and, you might blame the market. That's what most people do. And especially COVID was the best scapegoat ever. Like COVID happened. So therefore,
Yeah.
and then you're off the hook. And up COVID, I get it. Instead of like, oh, you know what? Some people thrived in COVID. I wonder what it took for them to thrive. And I wonder if I could take on that mindset so that I could thrive. But that's a level of ownership that feels like a threat instead of feels like life, instead of feels like an adventure. So, I mean, most folks don't want the adventure because it might not work out. Or, who's the guy? I'm blanking now, but here's a quote. Foster, maybe. Anyway, the treasure you most seek is in the cave you dare not enter.
And is that because of fear of death or fear of destruction or fear of what's in
Yes.
that cave, you know?
Yes and yes and yes. It's just all fear, right? It's like I don't know what's in there. I do want that thing, but I don't know what's in there, and it's dark, and there might be a dragon in there, and I might be challenged in there. I might not have what it takes. I might not be able to overcome. That fear, I will just choose to say, up, I couldn't go and blame whatever instead of putting myself to the test. But to put yourself to the test, you've got to have some kind of belief that I can reinvent myself even if the worst case scenario happens. And so that takes some faith.
This is so I have to ask this question because I want everybody. I imagine there are people on the side of the road right now that just they're pulled over and they're like, "Holy," right? Um, holy expletive, right?
I would be honored.
So here's the thing: does this all come back to we fear death, and therefore we have tried to avoid creating scenarios or situations where what we interpret as death here on this earth is is avoided, if you will. We're avoiding
Oh
this,
yeah.
or is
Yeah.
there something that I'm missing? Because going into the cave, you don't know what's going to be in there, but it's not like I'm afraid of the dark, but I'm afraid what's in the dark, so to speak, right? And so therefore
Yep.
I don't know. So if I walk across that line and I'm in there and oh geez, there's a rattlesnake pit I just walked into, and or a bear or whatever, right? Might be in there.
Yep.
Uh, Um, we fear that so much that it's over,
Yep.
that we stop that. And then we as human beings, because we're so creative, we manufacture that in business situations, in personal
Yep.
relationships, because at the beginning of this, you had said, I believe that it's 5 times more powerful that we will avoid pain than we will
Yeah.
actually go to get pleasure.
Yeah.
I guess my real question is, why the hell do we do, excuse my language, but why do we do this as human beings? Because this is the core of communication for humans to humans. And if one person is in fear and protecting themselves, and the other person is in fear and protecting themselves, then these two frames collide, and
Yeah.
it's not a good outcome.
Yeah. Well, why do we do it? We don't get a choice. We're always doing it. It's like the we call it the universal human paradigm, which
Yeah.
is the natural view. Every single person, my assertion is, I could be wrong, but my assertion is every person naturally looks and says that something and thinks something is wrong, bad, or broken with me, you, or it. Period. Like when there's a breakdown, something's wrong, bad, or broken with me, you, or it. And we all have our natural choice of where we go first. Some folks make the other person the enemy. Some people think, the broader context, the government, the reality, culture these days, blah, blah, blah. That's the it problem. Some people, think I'm messed up. It's me. Something's wrong with me. So we just go there. Why? Because I don't want to touch it. I don't want to get close to it because, to your point, trouble seems like death to us. It seems so extreme to say that, but that's actually what it is. It's like there's something, the ultimate, I mean, death is the ultimate failure, right? Quote unquote, ultimate failure. But the things that are not working in our lives, we don't want to get close to. So we label them as wrong, bad, or broken, so we don't have to get close to them. And that's why, my work, and I'm sure your work, is generating the heroic nature of folks. Is like, go get close to the thing you don't want to touch. We call it hugging the cactus. Like, go put your arms around that thing. Like, you've got a board that wants to fire you. You could like go, make your argument for why you're a superstar and why they're idiots. You could do that. That's a fool's errand. Or you could go talk to the board members, not like they're enemies, but like there's someone that you need to go get close to and understand where they're coming from. If you do that, you have an advantage in so many ways. But hugging the cactus, if that as a practice in your life, just opens life up. Because if you are busy judging things as bad, then your fear of what's that is, that's not like it's what you believe about it and how much you fear it, that puts the boundary on what's possible for you.
Mm.
Like, if my best friend, if my business partner, they could tell me anything and it's not a problem for me. I'm open, wide open. I'll ask a ton of questions and I want to understand their perspective. And if I understand their perspective, then my relationship with them is crystal clear. My relationship with what they think, I might reject what they think, and that's okay. But them, I'm here for them, and they can feel that. And so, like, opens up avenues of conversation.
So when we look at things from human beings looking at things
Yeah.
as this is broken, this is a problem, this is a challenge, this is whatever we deem that to be. We in turn, if I'm hearing you correctly, we in turn now create a problem. And that problem is broken down communication between ourself and
Yep.
ourself and our true self.
Yep.
If we've never clarified our truth self, then we've got another issue that we can fix. But what I'm hearing is we create our own internal problems, what then manifest into communications challenges or with other people by the meaning we put on that, because we're immediately going to, hey, this is probably broken, this is probably going to hurt, this is going to be whatever, right? Versus hugging the cactus and saying, okay, well,
Yep.
that didn't hurt as much, or that didn't hurt at all, or oh, that did hurt, right? And we're not really finding out because we're not allowing ourselves to go there. So if we're creating our own problem, then I know problems usually aren't the issue that we have to fix. We have to fix the cause of the problem, and then the problem usually goes lesser or goes away, right? That's my understanding. And again, feel free to please say, no, Doug, that's not how it works. So my question is, what is the step or steps that people can take immediately and move forward into reversing this issue for them? I know that might not be like you can change your life in 10 seconds here, that type issue. But if we were going to say, hey, take one or two steps, would it be like step back and take awareness inventory of what the heck's going on? What would be the first step or the second step and so on?
Yeah. So let's see where to begin. If I was listening to this and wondering, okay, let's say, first off, you got to get clear about what your purpose is. I don't mean that in like some kind of, butterflies and rainbows. I would just mean, what am I up to? Like, what do I really want to have happen here? So let's say I'm in conflict with someone, and do I want the conflict to be solved? Do I want a relationship with this person down the road? Do I not want a relationship with them? Do I want to just be the survivor in the conflict? Like, because whatever your aim really is will frame everything else. So let's just say I'm in conflict with someone. Let's say I'm a CEO and I'm, in a battle with my COO. Let's say that. And let's say the COO is awesome. So I want to keep working with this person, but there's a moment we're in together that it's contentious and we're at odds together. Great. So it's good to get clear. Okay, so I want to work with this person for the next 10 years. And then what experience do I want to have with them? These are all like slices to someone's vision that we don't consider. So, but what experience do I want to have with them? Do I want to be closer to them after this? It seems like this is obvious, but it's not obvious. Do I want to be closer to them? Do I want them to feel really understood? Do I want to build respect here or not? So you got to make all these decisions about what I'm really up to. But if I get clear about what my aim is, that's going to frame out what to do next. So let's say that's really clear. Let's say, I want to get clear on this thing. I want us to move forward with a lot of respect and camaraderie at the end of this thing. And I want to be understood. Obviously, I want them to be understood. Okay, great. I would then get really surgical about the distinction between reality, i.e., what I'm saying about what's happening, and what is actually happening. There's always a distinction there. Is that we live in, some folks have said, like, people react to the world as it occurs to them, not as what's happening, but as it occurs to them, right? So can I get clear about, to your point about self-awareness, and make the distinction between what's happening and what I think is happening. So then I get in a very curious posture, which I know you love too, is like, okay, here's what I think's happening, and get really clear about that. So let's say I'm going to break down, I'd get really clear. I'd write it all down. Here's what I think's happening. Good. And then I'd go ask the other party, hey, what do you think's happening? And trust me, it'll be worlds apart.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be worlds apart. And now you've got a new challenge to solve, because until you get clear, sometimes the folks tell them, until there's a now, there can't be a next. Right? So let's get clear on the now. What's really what is the breakdown about? Like, what's really here from multiple perspectives. But if we're not aligned on that, then like we're just shooting in the dark about where to go next, because everybody's coming from somewhere else. It's like we're all going to New York City, but one guy's in Albuquerque and one guy's in Seattle. Like, those are very different routes to get to the destination. So we got to get on the same place. And reality is always looking for a spokesperson. So we got to get really clear on what's happening. But if you do that, trust me, that's a large majority of the work. Because most folks are fighting because they don't share an understanding about what the challenge is.
That makes total sense to me. And to kind of give a personalized example of so my wife, she grew up in Poland, and I grew up in the United States, right? In Massachusetts. Right. We very rarely have disagreements, but when we do, it's traditionally been a misunderstanding about her meaning of a certain word or phrase, or my meaning of a word or a phrase. And I'll give you an example. Over there, people were trying to build their business in the training industry, and they said, well, what do you think I should sell out of this, this, or this? And I said, well, greed traditionally will always sell better than non-greed, right? In other words, give somebody an opportunity to, now, I don't mean that as a bad thing.
Yeah.
But over there, the word greed, because it's a highly Catholic society, is frowned upon, is not even close. It's like stomped upon, right? So the moment I said that, we had this debate going on back and forth, and I'm like, I don't get it, right? And I'm defending my point at that point, as to your point, right? And she's defending that point, right? So the reason I want people to understand what's so freaking important about what you just said was, unless you're clear about on the now, the next can't be, you'll get to a next, but do you want a good next, or do you want a next that's not so good? And unless you get on that clear same page with one another, the moment I understood what was going on over there, I was able to rephrase, because my outcome was to, make, a lifetime relationship with this person and the people she was surrounded with. Once I understood what the issue was in the now, I was able to align that now. And then the next has been going on now for 10 years. So that was great. And I want people to understand that no matter how skilled one is in communication, it's in real time. And you're dealing with different people and different cultures and different things that happen, genders, but if you get better and better and better and better at this, I would ask you this question, but I have found when we get better and better and better at these things and take ownership of our own truth, that
Yeah.
life just gets a lot easier and outcomes get a lot quicker to the positive outcome. Is that
Yeah.
a good way of
Well, and
saying
my takeaway of what you're saying is, you had a choice to make there because I think you and I could both make a very clear argument for why even in this Catholic society, greed still
it?
runs, the motives. But you chose the relationship over being right.
Yes.
And, I think that works all the time. I mean, you play the longer game, right? So you can like win an argument but create a wedge if you want. But as you're the person sitting in your seat in that story, it's like, what's worth it? What's worth it? I don't need to win this argument. I mean, I could make it, and at least in my mind, I'm right. But what's the point? Am I here to connect, or am I here just to preserve myself?
And
And most folks don't make that distinction in their life. Am I here for me and preserving how I define myself, or am I here to connect? And I say that's the only bit of legacy that matters for us long term. And the research came out, I don't know now, probably 10 years ago, as they've studied, and I'm sure it's been even way before that, doing all these interviews with people on their deathbed at 95. It's just the relationships that matter to them.
yeah,
That's the only thing they'll lose. That's the only thing they'll miss, is not the
yep.
money and not the things and not the whatever. It's the human connections. So if we could bring that perspective into everyday life, it makes life messier because we're messy and other people are messy, and it makes life much more, it reveals the reality of the complexity of life, but it also saves us from the complications in life. At least I make that distinction. Life's really complicated, unforgivingly complex, says Anne Lamott. But it's only it's complex. It's only complicated because I'm not clear about what I'm up to. And if I'm clear about what I'm up to, which is get XYZ outcomes, do it with these people, have integrity, make the right decision, fail a million times if we need to, then I'm good. Whatever's happening works. Wherever you're coming from, great. Whatever mood I'm in, whatever season of life I'm in, perfect. Here we go. And for me, that just gives the possibility of every moment is a teacher for me. Every conversation grows me. Everything is meant for my maturity, and I'm happier. So that's the way of being I choose, and imperfectly, obviously, but that's what I'm up to.
So firstly, I want to ask, how do people get to know more about Adrian? How do people get to know more about what Adrian does? What opportunities
Sure.
that are in it for them?
Sure. Well, you can, easy place to find me on like social media, adrian.k. I'm on there from time to time. They can go to takenewground.com and find out about me and my team and our offering and what we're up to. We say that all business problems are relational problems.
Yes.
That's a pretty, controversial, I guess. Most folks want it to be about the strategy, but the strategy is always grounded in the human conversations that are happening or not happening. So anyway, we're not the typical consultants. We go a lot deeper than anybody I know, that's for sure. But we are for the right people. If you want to get something done, I promise you, we will. We'll do whatever it takes. So anyway, takenewground.com. You can find my information on there and just contact me. Um, and happy to have an exploratory conversation with anybody, especially anybody from your network. Um, so happy to talk.
I
Happy to
really
talk. And
appreciate that.
yeah,
Um, I recall a conversation I had when I was in my early 20s with a gentleman's name's Jim Prito. And Jim and I were, I was this hard charging sales guy back then, right? Like,
sure.
I got to prove to the world that I'm always number one.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Rightfully so. Yeah.
thank you. And I still am that guy, but I've learned to build other people up along with me, right? Versus always
Yep.
being number one, so to speak.
Yep.
And
Yep.
But Jim and I had this conversation, and I said, Jim, you get a date of your birth, and that goes up on your tombstone. And then you got a date of your death that goes up on your tombstone. I said, I guess with, living a little healthier or whatever, we could, because there's a line in between, we could probably extend that line and make that date a little longer on the end side. Assuming everything goes the way it's supposed to. But we really can't change the line, right? The line is going to be the line in between. And he said these words to me, Adrian. He said, Doug, you can't change the line, but you can make it a hell of a lot fatter.
Hmm.
And this is what I'm hearing in our conversation. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
guys, we all have time. Don't fear the cave, right?
Yeah.
Don't-
Yeah.
right? And because most of the time it's our own internal caves that we're putting on the process. It's not like we're literally running into a cave not knowing what we're doing. We're just saying there's all kinds of things in the dark, right? And then we're
Yep.
thinning out that line because we're not living the joy that we're looking to live. We're not having the relationships we look to have because of our communication breakdown. And I agree with you 100%. I used to always say business is so easy if we remove people, right? It's money
Right.
in, money out equals, right? Um,
Yep.
but the moment you add people, you add emotions and values and beliefs and all these things, and then the communication gets broken down due to the things that we're talking about today. So it's not that
Yep.
the difficult people, it's difficult situations that
Right.
we then make personal about the people, and therefore we dig in on our own side versus looking at what is the win-win out of the situation. And
Yep.
that's what tends to cause the quote problem that comes about.
Right.
Is that accurate?
I would say that's accurate. I mean, what comes to mind is, and I'm guessing people listening to this are hard charging and brilliant and ambitious. And so they would naturally relate to this, where it's like what comes to mind is the most dangerous person in the room is the most honest person in the room. That's the old adage.
Mm.
And I think that's true. But what's also as or more true than that is if the most honest person in the room understands the room the best, so that I can actually play chess with the entire room because I have an awareness of myself so I can get myself out of the way. And then I can actually see other people and where they're coming from and what they're up to and what the conflicting intentions are and what's really happening here. And if I can really fully understand that and put language to it, then I'm the most effective leader possible. And that's doable. Like that's trainable. That's perspective. That's, certain types of inquiry to live into. And if you do that, to your point, life becomes so much more effective and so much more fulfilling. And so that dash really gets, fatter because it's like, oh, I'm actually fully here. I'm not just getting by.
Adrian, I want to thank you so much for bringing your A game to this conversation and imparting all this wisdom on people. Folks, you can find Adrian, last name is Koehler, and that's how it's pronounced. And you're at
Yeah,
Take.
but spelled Koehler. I know it's really
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
But people
So,
can people
so
can email me out of nowhere, Adrian at takenewground.com. Love to be in contact with you guys.
awesome. Adrian, thanks again for being here on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you, man.
All right, I hope you have a ton of notes. I have pages of notes. And the first thing that stood out to me is, what is the meaning that we give it? In other words, the meaning resides in the receiver, right? That's what Adrian had said. And I have known that to be true throughout because we come to a conversation with frames. Sometimes it's social frames, sometimes it's frames that we learned growing up or just recently learned, and we come with this belief and value system. And the reality is that the meaning isn't always what we give it, it's how we perceive we give it. And that's what gets people into challenges a lot of times. And then they start saying, well, this is a difficult person. Instead of focusing on the business situation at hand or the personal situation at hand, which we deem as X, we then transfer that to that human being. And the moment we start doing that, we start playing a losing game in most cases. And the reason behind that is because what we give as a meaning may not even be true, right? Because we're not clear about the outcome and we're not clear about what we want as an outcome. And so if we're acting as if that, hey, this is a problem, this is an issue that's a challenge, this is this, and we're framing it as such, and we're giving that as a meaning, and our natural tendency is, I always need to win too, or win, then we're going to have a one-sided conversation. That's not win-win, right? There's so many things in here. I would recommend you listen to this episode 4 times, take notes, dissect it. Ask yourself those qualified and quality questions of yourself that you could be asking of other people. Get clear on your truth. Get clear on what you want as your internal truth, and then operate from that system, and things go way better. I promise you this happens. All right. Until next time. If you're looking to increase your revenues and you're looking to do this systematically, mathematically, predictably, if you're looking or you're falling behind on your follow-up today, or you're not actually doing follow-up today, reach out to me. On the first subject of predictable revenue growth, it's easy to get a bump. On just this one missing ingredient called follow-up, you can easily pick up a 5, sometimes up to 20% revenue just by installing that in the process. And if you're not aware, we created a SaaS automated process for you to do that. And we have a training and coaching and advisory service on how to create predictable revenue. If you're interested in either one of those, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com by email, and I will certainly respond. Until next time, go out and sell something. Sell a heck of a lot of it. Play win-win-win, right? Look at your internal system based on what this conversation was in this podcast today. And don't discount, because you don't have to. You just position your value differently, and you'll find that with more value as perceived by them, people will pay more for value. All right. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown saying, to your success.